Discover the hidden heartwarming journeys of 100 opium addicts in old Shanghai. Life-changing tales await. In the teeming streets of 1930s Shanghai, Mei Li worked her fingers raw, stitching together pieces of fabric into beautiful garments. The clatter of her sewing machine blended into the vibrant sounds of a bustling neighborhood filled with laughter, shouts, and the distant melodies of street musicians. But the joy around her was marred by a darkness creeping through the alleys. The grip of opium had tightened its hold on friends and neighbors, leaving a trail of despair in its wake. Mei Li rose each morning, fueled by the resolve to support her ailing father and her younger siblings. She often found herself smuggling meager provisions to those in need, accompanied by encouraging words and small smiles. She remembered how they once huddled together in joyous gatherings, now replaced by hollow eyes and whispered regrets. One of her friends, Chen, once vibrant and full of life, now exchanged smiles for empty stares. Her heart cracked each time she saw him by the door of the opium den. "Good morning, Mei Li," he would call out, his voice barely above a whisper, and every time, she'd feel the familiar pang in her chest. It tore her apart to see him decline. Determined to make a difference, she decided to organize food drives and community gatherings, hoping to reweave the fabric of unity that addiction had shredded. Yet, as her efforts blossomed, so did the criticism from the wealthier classes. Mei Li felt their disdain like a cold wind. "She thinks she can save them," they mocked, their words sharp and unyielding. They looked down on her, an ordinary seamstress trying to mend a broken community with kindness and compassion. Their prejudices dug into her mind, causing her to doubt her worth and purpose. But for every sneer she faced, she recalled the beaming faces of her neighbors when they shared a meal, a memory strong enough to stoke her fire. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One fateful evening, while she stood outside the opium den, watching the shadows flicker like ghosts of lost souls, vermilion skies wrapped her surroundings in a surreal haze. In that moment of despair, as the cold air brushed against her cheeks, her hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of decision. Would she turn her back on her family's needs in pursuit of a greater good? Or would she become just another voice echoing in the alleys, swallowed by the indifference surrounding her? The struggle within was palpable, pushing her to question everything she held dear. But deep within her heart, she knew the call to serve her community was a powerful echo that needed to be heard. Standing at a precipice of change, Mei Li felt the stirrings of hope ignite in her chest. Would she venture down the road of love and grace, or succumb to the security of her own ambitions? As she took a deep breath, the winds shifted, carrying with them the whispered cries of her community in the night. Tomorrow would be another challenge, but Mei Li's heart beat louder than the darkness surrounding her. The story of redemption had just begun. As dawn broke over Shanghai, the hues of orange and gold crept through Mei Li's window, casting a soft glow across her room. She rose early, brushing her hair back and casting a glance at her sleeping siblings. They were still tangled in dreams, so innocent and unaware of the shadows lurking outside. She tiptoed past them, the wooden floor creaking beneath her, a gentle reminder of the struggles that lay ahead. Today was the day she had planned to gather the community for another meal. With every stitch she made at her machine, Mei Li envisioned the faces of those she sought to help, each smile, each shared laugh a thread binding them together. She gathered her supplies, a few bags of rice, vegetables, and a batch of freshly baked bao that she had made that morning. A warm scent filled the air, mingling with the promise of purpose. As she stepped into the bustling streets, the vibrant life of Shanghai enveloped her. Voices rang out, and street vendors called out their daily specials. But as Mei Li walked, the haunting sight of the opium den made her heart constrict. She spotted Chen sitting against the wall, his face pale and gaunt, eyes vacant yet still somehow recognizing her. There was a struggle within that familiar gaze, a flicker of who he used to be before addiction had claimed him. Mei Li, he croaked, forcing a smile. The bao smells so good today. She knelt beside him, stifling the emotions threatening to spill out. Would you like one? She asked, her voice soft yet laced with hope. His smile wavered. I can't, not today. The words were like knives, cutting through the fabric of their friendship. She looked at him, her heart heavy, and whispered, You're not alone, Ah-Chen. We're fighting together. Yet, as she stood, uncertainty gnawed at her. Would her kindness be enough? The whispers around her suggested otherwise. People from the wealthier districts exchanged disapproving glances, prepared to scoff at her efforts. What could a seamstress ever do? They'd say. She caught fragments of their conversations, words like futile and naive sinking deep into her resolve, but Mei Li refused to succumb. Today was about more than just a meal, it was a lifeline. With every step toward the community center, she recalled the vision she had for her neighborhood: nourishment, laughter, and unity triumphing over despair. As she reached the center, the sun sat high, casting the place in warmth. Families began to gather, their faces wary at first but softened by the aroma wafting from the table. Children darted about, their laughter bubbling up like a welcome song. With each face that turned toward her, Mei Li felt a flicker of bravery spark within her. Suddenly, she heard a voice. What are you all doing here? A figure emerged from the shadowed alley. It was Zhao, a notorious dealer known for his ruthlessness, wearing a grin that sent chills down her spine. Gathering scraps for your lost causes, Mei Li? They'll never change. Why waste your time? Her heart raced, but still, she stood tall. Because I believe we can change. One meal, one connection at a time. Mei Li felt the murmurs ripple through the crowd, a mix of apprehension and support. In that moment, she realized change had begun not just inside herself but within the very community she fought for. They were more than victims, they were resilient souls willing to try again. Yet the question remained: could they withstand the storm that Zhao would inevitably bring? As the crowd watched, a silent agreement formed together: they would face whatever came their way. What Mei Li didn't expect was that the very glue binding them would soon be tested in ways she couldn't imagine. The air in the community center was thick with tension following Zhao's chilling taunt. The laughter that had filled the room moments ago faded, leaving behind whispers of uncertainty. Mei Li felt the pit in her stomach deepen as she glanced around at the familiar faces. The laughter of children turned to cautious glances. They were all looking to her now. Let us eat. She called out, her voice steadier than she felt. She smiled, gathering warmth from the children's hopeful eyes, and began serving the bowls of rice and steaming bao. One by one, the crowd hesitated, but soon the need for food took over. Families lined up, and Mei Li watched as hands dove into the bowls, faces lighting up in the glow of togetherness. Yet Zhao lingered at the edge, his shadow lurking over the gathering like a storm cloud. He was a part of the darkness they were trying to escape, and as Mei Li served, a part of her wondered whether her efforts were enough to shield them all from the menace he brought. When Ah-Chen finally stepped forward, his frame looked even more fragile amidst the bustling crowd. Can I have some? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Of course, she replied, her heart aching for him. She filled a bowl and handed it to him, her fingers brushing against his. He looked at her, gratitude mingled with a flicker of shame, and then moved away to sit on the steps outside. Her heart broke just a little more to see him there, alone amidst the unfamiliar camaraderie that had begun to form within the space. Mei Li stepped outside, relieved to escape the oppressive atmosphere inside. She took a seat beside Ah-Chen, the sun warming her skin. You okay? She asked gently. He shrugged, staring at the ground. I don't know why I keep coming back. I'm not worth this, he admitted, his voice cracking. Ah-Chen, every life is worth fighting for, Mei Li replied, her voice firm. You're not just some numbers, not just a victim of circumstance. You're our friend. We need each other. You need to believe that. He glanced at her, confusion and a hint of hope dancing in his eyes. But I've hurt so many people. Everyone has their battles. You're still fighting, she said fiercely. One meal, one laughter at a time can do so much more than you think. Zhao's laughter resonated from inside, cutting through the light-hearted chatter. It sounded like thunder. Look at them, huh? Stupid to think a meal will change anything. He hollered, and the laughter inside the center faltered. Mei Li could feel the shift, the fear coiling back into the hearts of those she had fought so hard to uplift. What do we do? Ah Chen murmured, despair creeping back into his voice. Show them they're wrong, Mei Li said, determination boiling within her. Together. As she stood, looking back at the crowd now mostly silent, her heart raced. She could see the defiance slowly creeping back into their expressions, the fire of resilience rekindling. But Zhao was not about to back down, and she knew a confrontation was brewing on the horizon. The weight of the community's hope rested on her shoulders, and a mixture of fear and courage surged through her veins. We will not let him break us, she declared. The crowd began murmuring again, their whispers turning into softer, strengthening voices, uniting against the shadow, yet as the sun began to dip behind the buildings, painting the sky in crimson, Mei Li realized she was standing at the precipice of something bigger than just a meal. Hope was fragile, and in the brewing storm, it could shatter in an instant. What was she prepared to risk for the sake of those she called family? Would her resolve hold when the darkness threatened to swallow them whole? As Mei Li turned to face the crowd, a wave of determination washed over her. She could feel the collective energy shifting back toward hope, but it was a delicate balance. Every heartbeat echoed in her chest, urging her to push forward, to remind them of their worth. Listen, she called, her voice rising above the murmur. Every meal shared, every laugh, every moment we spend together brings us closer. We are stronger than fear. At first, their eyes flickered with uncertainty. But slowly, one by one, faces turned toward her. The light of hope flickered back in their expressions, and she could see the moment shift. Together, she repeated, her heart racing. We will rise up. We will not cower in fear of Zhao or anyone else. Each of you matters. Each of you has a voice. The crowd began to respond, their murmurs growing louder. Ah Chen, still sitting on the steps, looked up, a spark igniting in his eyes. He joined the chorus, his voice steadier than it had been moments before. Together. He echoed, and the word rippled through the crowd, resonating off the walls of the community center. Zhao's laughter turned to a sneer, his voice cold as ice. Together? They're just naive children playing pretend. You think you can change anything? But Mei Li stood firm, facing him. It's not naive to believe in one another. It's what makes us human. We don't fear your challenges, Zhao. We embrace the struggle. It's part of our story. Her words hung in the air, a challenge thrown down like a gauntlet. The crowd shifted, a palpable energy building as they rallied around her. Silence fell for just a moment. Then, like a wave crashing against the shore, the whispers turned into shouts of agreement. Together. Together. They chanted. The power of unity surged through the gathering, wrapping around each person like a warm blanket. Zhao's face contorted with rage, the anger churning in his core made evident by the way his fists clenched at his side. You think this changes anything? Look around you. Everyone here has their own darkness. You're fools if you think a little hope and togetherness will save you from it. But they did not falter. Mei Li felt their strength mixing with her own, fueling a fire that ignited deep within. We all have darkness, she cried back, her voice steady. But we also have each other. That's what makes us strong. As the sun dipped lower, shadows danced across the ground, and the light of the community center glowed brighter, a beacon against the encroaching night. Bursts of laughter erupted as one brave child, emboldened by the moment, leaped forward with a plate of bao and yelled, I love bao. The innocent joy shifted the atmosphere, eliciting chuckles from the crowd. Laughter intermingled with defiance, a powerful reminder of why they had come together in the first place. Don't let him take this from us. Mei Li urged, her heart swelling with pride. This is our space, our sanctuary. We have the power to reclaim it. But just as hope surged, Zhao stepped closer, his figure darkening the threshold of the community center. You think this is just about food and laughter? His tone dripped with contempt. I'm only getting started. And you'll see just how fragile your little family is. The air shifted again, the warmth suddenly feeling colder, tension trembling as a new dread settled among them. Mei Li took a deep breath, the challenge hanging like a storm cloud above them. What else was he planning? And how would they weather the storm together? Just then, a loud crash echoed from inside, shattering the fleeting sense of safety they had managed to build. The crowd jumped, eyes wide with shock. What was that? Achin whispered, fear creeping back into his voice. Mei Li looked back toward the center, her heart racing with adrenaline and fear. Whatever Zhao had in store was about to unfold, and they had only just begun to realize the fight ahead. They must stand together now more than ever. But as the atmosphere crackled with anticipation, a new question gripped her heart: would they be ready for what was coming? The sound of splintering would echoed through the community center, a stark reminder that the fragility of their newfound hope was being tested. The crowd tensed, hands clutching friends and family, their earlier confidence hanging by a thread. Mei Li's heart pounded in her chest, each thud a reminder of how much they stood to lose. Stay close, she urged, moving instinctively to the front of the crowd, her voice barely above a whisper yet steady. The faces around her reflected a mix of fear and determination. She could see it in their eyes, the fiery embers of resolve still flickering despite Zhao's threats. In that moment, the door of the community center splintered open, revealing a young man flanked by two other figures. Their clothes were ragged, faces gaunt, and the look in their eyes spoke of struggles that felt familiar yet distant. More echoes of Zhao's cruelty. What do you want? Mei Li called out, stepping forward. Anger and fear mingled within her, but she masked it with defiance. This is our space. The young man stepped closer, his gaze shifting from Mei Li to the crowd. We're not here to fight, he said, his voice shaking slightly. We need help. The crowd murmured in confusion. Ah Chin's brow furrowed as he scanned the newcomer, trying to gauge the truth behind the words. Help? What do you mean? The man took a shaky breath before he spoke again. We've been running from Zhao. His grip on our lives is suffocating. We lost everything. His eyes dropped to the ground before he continued. We heard about you, about the community you're building. It's the only thing keeping us going. Mei Li felt an inkling of compassion swell within her. You're safe here, she said softly, glancing back at the crowd, who were visibly torn between fear and empathy. The knowledge that others shared their pain connected them, tying their stories together. Zhao will come for you, one of the other figures warned. He won't stop until he breaks you like he broke us. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, but Mei Li raised her hand. Then we must prepare. The assertiveness in her voice felt right, pushing doubt aside. We have to stand for them as we stand for ourselves. It's time to show Zhao that we won't live in fear any longer. Together. Achin shouted, his voice ringing throughout the center. We'll protect each other, no matter what. The chant spread through the crowd once more, steady and strong, a wave of solidarity that washed over them all, but the newfound solidarity also brought heavy doubts. Would their strength be enough to withstand Zhao's impending wrath? Suddenly, the realization hit Mei Li like a freight train. Zhao was only growing more dangerous, and the idea of calling in reinforcements from outside their community was daunting. Who could they trust? No one is free while others are enslaved, she murmured to herself, a mantra that solidified her resolve. She glanced back at the newcomers as hope flickered for them too. In finding a connection, they could all rise, but the stakes were becoming crystal clear now. Are you ready to join us? She asked them, locking eyes with the young man who had first spoken. Yes, he asserted, determination spilling into his voice. We want to fight. A roar of encouragement echoed through the crowd, but as their voices melted into one, a nagging fear crept into Mei Li's thoughts. Was it courage they felt, or was it ignorance of the storm that lay ahead? As if answering her question, a loud thud resonated outside, followed by the rapid approach of footsteps echoing on the pavement. The crowd's chant dissipated into anxious silence, eyes wide with panic. What now? Ah Chen's voice trembled, uncertainty creeping back. Mei Li swallowed hard. The winds of change were growing fierce, and they were standing right at the edge of a looming confrontation. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. But would they remain united when the storm broke? As the door rattled against the wall, a deep voice called out from beyond, "You think you can defy me?" The tension was palpable, each breath heavy with expectation. Mei Li's hands curled into fists, and as the door burst open, she stood tall ready to face whatever awaited them. But as the shadow crossed the threshold, she took one last breath. Was it truly time to confront their fears? The door flew open with a crash, revealing Zhao, a towering figure engulfed in darkness. His icy gaze swept over the crowd, a predator surveying helpless prey. Mei Li's heart raced as she felt the weight of his presence pressing down on her, suffocating the air in the room. What do we have here? His voice oozed sarcasm, dripping with disdain. A little gathering of the desperate and the lost? How quaint. Leave them alone. Mei Li shouted, stepping forward with a surge of determination. You have no power here. Zhao chuckled, a low and menacing sound that sent shivers through the crowd. Power is exactly what I have, Mei Li. You should know better than to challenge me. He took a step closer, and the crowd instinctively moved back, a wave of fear rippling through them. Zhao, you can't keep treating people like this, the young man beside Mei Li said, his voice trembling yet filled with a flicker of bravery. We're no longer afraid of you. Zhao's expression shifted, momentarily surprised by the defiance. It fueled a fire inside Mei Li. She could feel the collective breath of the crowd, each heart beating louder in response to their shared fear and hopes. They were standing together, and it was powerful. Listen to him. Mei Li encouraged, her eyes scanning the faces of the newcomers who had stood with her. We've fought too hard to be crushed under your boot. You think you can intimidate us into submission? We're stronger than you think. He smirked, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Stronger? You're nothing but an illusion of strength. I've seen weaker souls bend and break under my reign. What makes you think you can resist? The shadows loomed large in the community center, yet a fire ignited within Mei Li. Because we've chosen each other. You may try to tear us apart, but we'll only grow closer. You can't break what you didn't build. A roar of agreement rose from the crowd. It trembled in the air, loud and fierce. Mei Li felt its warmth seep into her, emboldening her further. But Zhao remained unfazed, unfurling a plan of chaos with each word. If you insist on defiance, know this, not only will you suffer, but so will those you care about. I will take everything from you, shred every connection until you're hollow. At his words, Mei Li felt panic surge through her. She looked at the newcomers, fear darkening their expressions. Choking back the knot in her throat, she fought to keep her voice steady. You will not break our bond. We choose each other, no matter what. We'll protect everyone here. Zhao raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet dismissive. You think you're at the helm of change? Even with your tight-knit community? His eyes darted around the room, making every soul uneasy. I could shatter this dream in an instant. For a brief moment, silence swallowed the noise in the room. Anxiety rushed in like a tidal wave, echoing loudly in Mei Li's mind. But deep inside, a small flicker of hope remained quickening her resolve. Then do it, she challenged, her voice unwavering. We will rise from the ashes. I won't stand by and let you control our lives any longer. Zhao narrowed his eyes, computing her audacity. Just then, behind him, faint movements broke the tension. A group of townsfolk, eyes bright with purpose, stood just outside the door. They'd come to offer their support. Relief coursed through Mei Li, mingling with the fight simmering inside her. "Look around you," Mei Li said, her voice gaining strength. "We are united, and we will not be broken. You can try, but you will always fail." The air crackled with newfound intensity, a palpable moment of truth. Had they rallied enough courage to face Zhao's threat? Zhao's lips turned into a sinister grin. "Very well. Let us see if your little alliance can withstand the storms to come." As he turned to leave, Mei Li felt a rush of adrenaline. They had risen against him, the fight had just begun. The crowd stood silhouetted in the light of the shattered door, a stark reminder that hope was a choice they had all made together, and the days ahead, Mei Li thought, the consequences of their defiance would be enormous. Would they find the strength they needed to stand their ground? But as Zhao's figure disappeared into the shadows, the question hung in the air: what would happen next? What if their courage ignited the change they desperately sought, or the backlash shattered everything they held dear? The air in the community center buzzed with a mix of adrenaline and disbelief. Mei Li stood at the forefront, her heart pounding like a war drum. Around her, faces turned anxious but determined. She felt the weight of their hopes and fears intertwine, a heavy yet empowering amalgamation. "What do we do now?" a woman in the crowd whispered, her voice tremulous. She was gripping her child's hand tightly as if the act alone might shield them. "Now, we prepare," Mei Li replied, projecting confidence she wasn't sure she felt. "We gather our strength, our resources. We need a plan." But Zhao, another voice quivered, hesitation seeped through like a crack in a wall. "He has so much power. What if he finds a way to hurt us?" A chill wrapped around Mei Li's spine at the thought, but she pushed through it. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to join forces, become even stronger. We'll show him that we will not fall apart." As murmurs of agreement flowed through the crowd, a sudden knock on the door interrupted. Eyes darted nervously. Mei Li felt a flicker of dread, but she steeled herself. "I'll see who it is." She pushed through the throng and approached the door cautiously, tensing as she pulled it slightly ajar. Outside stood an older man, his face lined with worry and resolve. "Mei Li," he said breathlessly, "I heard what happened. You need reinforcements. More people are willing to fight." "Really?" she asked, relief rushing in. "You're willing to stand with us?" "More than willing. It's time we take back our lives." The man stepped closer. "But we need to act fast." Zhao won't wait long to retaliate. She took a deep breath as a wave of hope surged within her. "Gather everyone who believes in this fight. Tell them to come here. It's time to stand together." With renewed energy, she rushed back to the crowd. "People are joining us. We're building a stronger front." Hope rippled through the gathering. The energy was electric. Every face was alive with purpose. Conversations sparked everywhere, plans forming like roots spreading underground. They worked together, piecing together resources, food, information, allies. Each contribution, no matter how small, felt monumental. Mei Li felt the magic of community weave around her, lifting spirits higher than ever, yet, the shadow of Zhao loomed large. As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting long shadows, a sense of urgency grew. With each hour that passed, the likelihood of his next move became ever clearer. "We should set watch," she suggested, her voice steadying. "We need to be alert." The first night fell while they prepared defenses. Heartbeats echoed in the silence, as hope mingled with trepidation. They formed groups, creating shifts to ensure everyone had a chance to rest. Yet, Mei Li couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with questions: what could Zhao unleash against them? What if they weren't enough? As moonlight trickled through the broken windows, sleep-deprived but resolute, Mei Li sat on the edge of her seat, clutching her hand tight against her chest. She thought of her community, now a web of intertwined stories. Their journeys connected in ways they hadn't fully grasped. Just as the night deepened, a hushed voice called from the shadows. Mei Li? It was the young man, the one who stood bravely beside her the first time. Can we talk? What's on your mind? She asked, noticing the storm behind his gaze. I've been thinking, what if we find Zhao's weaknesses? What if there's something we can use against him? Her heart raced at the thought of turning the tide in their favor. That's brilliant, she exclaimed. But where do we start? Maybe we can gather information from the outskirts. There must be those who know him better. Excitement buzzed in the air. Mei Li felt something shift within her. It was the stirrings of newfound power, but in the back of her mind, questions lingered. How far would Zhao go to suppress them? What secrets did he hold that they needed to uncover? As dawn approached, Mei Li knew time was of the essence. Would they unearth Zhao's secrets before he struck? The moment they had been waiting for was fast approaching a tipping point that could either set them free or seal their fates forever. The first light of dawn broke through the gloom, casting a soft glow inside the community center. Mei Li felt the warmth of the sun on her face, but it was overshadowed by the chill of urgency that wrapped around her. She took a deep breath, rallying herself for the day ahead. We have to be strategic, she began, her voice clear as she gathered the people in the center. The crowd was a sea of determined faces, anxious yet hopeful. We'll split into teams. One will scout the outskirts for allies, and the other will dig deeper into Zhao's past. As she spoke, a new energy surged through the group. The young man, whose name she still hadn't learned, stepped up beside her. I'll lead the scouting team. We need to get close, listen, and figure out what we're up against. If there's anyone who knows Zhao's weaknesses, it might be the old guards on the outskirts, he said, determination sparkling in his eyes. Mei Li nodded, grateful for his leadership. And I'll head the information gathering, she replied. With the stories of those he's wronged, we could carve out a path to his vulnerabilities. As the day progressed, teams formed, each fueled by both fear and courage. They dispersed from the community center, and the weight of hope filled the air like the scent of blooming flowers. Mei Li felt a buoyancy in her heart, but it mingled with anxiety about what they might find. As she walked through the streets, she noticed how their community was transforming. People who had once been divided were coming together, sharing their experiences and resources. A group of elderly men was in a corner, reminiscing about their younger days with a nostalgic spark that had long been dulled. It was contagious. Laughter erupted, faces softened and smiles. Hours flew by as Mei Li and her team went from door to door. Each story they uncovered became a thread in their quilt of resistance. They listened to tales of betrayal and pain, but also of strength and resilience. Every encounter lit a fire inside her, igniting the belief that they truly could stand against Zhao. Just as twilight approached, the scouting team returned, their faces tense but lit with purpose. The young man stepped forward, gathering everyone's attention. We found something, he said, breathing heavily as though the weight of his discovery was immense. What did you learn? Mei Li asked, her heart racing. There's talk of an upcoming shipment of weapons Zhao is planning to receive. If we disrupt it, we can weaken him significantly, he explained, eyes wide with excitement and fear. A collective gasp spread across the crowd. Mei Li felt the adrenaline course through her. We can't let this opportunity slip away. Disrupting his supply could change everything. But with the thrill of possibility came hesitation. It'll be dangerous, warned a woman from the crowd, her brow furrowing. What if we're caught? Then we'll have to be smart and prepared, Mei Li replied, heart pounding yet resolute. This is our chance to hit him where it hurts. If we stand together, nothing can break us. There was a pause, hesitance replaced by nods of agreement. Hope shimmered in the air as they began to plan their next move. But deep within, Mei Li couldn't shake the feeling that they were edging closer to a point of no return. Tonight, they were a step away from confronting the monster that had held them captive for too long. As the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and reds. She realized this battle would determine their fates. Would they seize control, or would fear grip them once again? The final moments before their assault drew nearer, and she could feel the weight of that unknown pressing down on her. Would they emerge victorious or pay the ultimate price? The answers loomed, heavier than the looming shadows, waiting to challenge their resolve. One question lingered in the air: was their strength enough to conquer the darkness? The night enveloped the community like a thick blanket, muffling sounds and cloaking them in darkness. Mei Li stood at the edge of the gathering, observing her people as they huddled together, whispering plans and strategies. She couldn't help but feel the weight of their lives resting on her shoulders. Each face around her bore a story of hardship, hope, and the fierce desire for freedom. "Is everyone ready?" Mei Li called out, her voice steady, piercing the stillness of the night. The flickering lantern light cast shadows on their determined faces, illuminating the resilience that shimmering within. A chorus of yes echoed back, empowering her. The young man from earlier, still by her side, looked to her with a mix of admiration and anxiety. "We can do this, right?" he asked, doubt creeping into his voice. "Yes," she replied, locking eyes with him. "We will. Together, we are stronger than Zhao's fear." Her words seemed to ignite a fire within him, and she added, "Let us keep the plan simple. Stealth. If we draw any attention, it won't end well." With a nod, he breathed deeply and shared the layout of their target: the warehouse by the river where Zhao's shipment would arrive. They had mapped out 2 entry points, surrounded the location with volunteers, and even planned a diversion to keep eyes away from the main event. Excitement battled with anxiety in the air. The night felt alive with anticipation as they started to move. Mei Li's heart raced, each thump echoing like a drum in her ears. The fear was there, but so was something more potent: hope. When they reached the outskirts of the warehouse, the sounds of muffled voices and the clinking of metal reached them, a promise of action and change. "Stay close," Mei Li whispered, and the group tightened around her. As they crept along the shadows, a sudden rustle startled them. A few heads turned, nerves kicked into high gear, but Mei Li raised her hand, signaling for silence. Her instincts honed in on the threat. She spotted 2 guards murmuring near the entrance. "Now what?" a woman beside her asked, eyes wide with concern. Mei Li felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she couldn't falter now. "We need to distract them," she said, scanning their surroundings. Then she caught sight of a stray cat, darting nearby. Inspiration struck. "That alley over there," she pointed. "Let us create a commotion." With the swift, silent movements of practiced shadows, they proceeded to make noise. A few stones thrown, a soft hiss, and suddenly, the guard's attention shifted. They seized the moment, slipping past through the side door, unseen. Inside, the dim light illuminated crates stacked high, a chilling reminder of what they were up against. Mei Li felt her breath hitch. All around them, instruments of oppression awaited deployment. She glanced back at the group, heads nodding in silent acknowledgement of their unspoken oath. "Each crate we take down brings us closer to freedom," she reminded them, a mix of resolve and vulnerability in her voice. They began a strategic approach, removing boxes and hastily marking them for destruction. But with every crate they dismantled, a gnawing fear pulled at her insides. How would Zhao respond? Would their courageous act of defiance be enough, or would it unleash a storm of chaos? Just then, the silence shattered. Footsteps grew louder, encroaching on their carefully orchestrated mission. "Move. We need to finish before they find us," she barked, adrenaline surging as urgency thrummed through the lessening time. As they worked feverishly, Mei Li's heart raced, fueled by fear and bravery intertwined. The moment of truth was closing in on them. Would they finish before the darkness consumed them? And above it all, one haunting realization washed over her: what if this act of defiance opened a door they couldn't close? Would they be able to handle what came next? Amidst the chaotic tension inside the warehouse, the scent of fear mingled with the metallic tang of urgency. Crates, hurriedly torn apart, spilled their contents onto the floor like the hopes of an oppressed community bursting to life. Each crash echoed like a heartbeat, reminding Mei Li of everything they were fighting for. Then, the unmistakable sound of boots echoed through the long, narrow corridor. "They're coming!" someone shouted, panic rising in the throat of their brave band. "We have to hurry." Mei Li felt her heart race. It was now or never. "We can't stop," she urged, her voice steady while dread twisted in her stomach. "This is our moment. The hope for every person out there." In that instant, adrenaline surged through her, lending strength to her trembling hands. Each crate they dismantled represented something bigger. It was a strike against Zhao, a blow to the chains that bound them. As the last crate fell, a deafening crack reverberated, and the group startled, hearts racing. "Let us go, let us go," Mei Li urged, motioning toward the back exit. But just as they began to flee, the heavy thud of armored boots grew closer. Shadows flickered on the walls. "I see them," a voice cried, panic sparking. The group scrambled as shadows descended, narrowing their path, turning their escape into a frenzied race against time. "Quick! Out the back!" Mei Li shouted, her voice rising above the mounting chaos. They dashed toward the rear exit, pushing past each other, desperation fueling their movement. Suddenly, a body collided with hers. One of Zhao's men had spotted them. The world slowed for a moment, and Mei Li, heart pounding, felt an intense clarity. This was not merely about survival, it was about solidarity and breaking free from fear. With a powerful grip, she grasped the attacker's arm, twisting him around with all her weight. "Now!" she shouted, and her community surged forward, using every ounce of strength they had. Outside, the crisp air hit like a wave, but they didn't pause. They navigated scurrying shadows under the moonlight toward safety. "This way," she called, leading them through a labyrinth of alleys that twisted like a forgotten memory. Suddenly, the warehouse door erupted behind them, chaos pouring out as thudding feet chased their trail. Mei Li could hear shouts, menacing laughs, and the dreaded voice of Zhao. "You think you can run? You have nowhere to go." But no one faltered. They rushed through the winding streets, their feet pounding against the worn cobblestones, the hope clinging to them like a lifeline. Behind them, the sound of anger echoed in the night, growing dimmer as distance grew between safety and danger. Finally, they reached the community center, breaths coming in ragged gasps, hearts racing like an unchained wild horse. Their sanctuary stood resolute, welcoming them with the flickering light of safety. With a flurry of urgency, they bolted inside, locking the door behind them. Mei Li turned to face the shivering assembly. "We did it. We took a stand. But at what cost?" someone whispered. "What will he do to us now?" A heavy silence settled, dread coating the air. But Mei Li took a deep breath, the weight of their shared struggle surging through her. "We will fight. We are not alone," and this moment ignited something much bigger. Her heart swelled as she looked around, meeting the gazes of those she had fought to save. "Zhao isn't just an enemy, he has fueled our flames of resilience. We're united against him. He thinks our fear can silence us, but we've shown him our strength." Laughter, albeit scattered and wantful, erupted again, a tide breaking over rocks of uncertainty. Then, they heard a knock. Heavy, insistently firm. The unity of the community felt fragile, but Mei Li stepped forward, determination shining in her eyes. Opening the door just a crack, a familiar face emerged, an ally with new supporters behind him. "We heard what you did. Are you ready for more?" Tears streamed down Mei Li's cheeks as relief washed over her heart. Families, friends, those broken by Zhao's rule had found refuge and allies in their struggle. "Hell yes!" someone shouted from the crowd, infectious courage rippling through. The small space buzzed with excitement, a powerful metamorphosis unfolding. As new faces filled the room, Mei Li felt the shift within herself, a realization that bonds strengthened through shared battles. "We will take back what is ours," she called, and voices resonated in harmony. "Together," echoed through the night, a chant that ignited a flame of hope that could not be extinguished. This was not merely an assembly of individuals, they were family, a collective heartbeat. As dawn began to break, it brought with it a promise of resilience, a light chasing away the darkness that Zhao had cast. In those moments, Mei Li knew the fight was just beginning, but with every resolved glance in that room, every shared goal whispered in determination, she felt invincible. Let us come together for our future, for our families. This is our time to rewrite the tale of Shanghai, with love, hope, and persistence. She exclaimed, so full of conviction. The roar of agreement shook the dust from the floorboards and filled the air, echoing through the newfound space of their sanctuary. United together, as one, they moved forward into the unknown. It was time to reclaim their lives, and they would rise, like the dawn breaking over Shanghai, radiant and free. Now is the moment. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next life-changing stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let the magic of these transformations thrive. Comment below and share your feelings about this conclusion. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the strength of their community. Your voice matters today. We stand together.